Hello everybody, welcome to my Cambridge English Advanced Reading Paper video course. In this lesson we're going to be focusing on part 7 of the reading paper. So you're going to learn the best tips, technique and strategy to use in the exam to complete part 7. We're also going to look at some practice examples during this lesson to help you. So part 7 is called gapped text. And this is what it looks like. You have one long passage and what you need to do is to fill in 6 gaps with some paragraphs. So there are 6 gaps in the passage and you need to fill these in with a whole paragraph. How many passages or texts do you need to read? Just one. And how many options can you choose from for each gap? There are 7 options to choose from. So there are only 6 gaps in text, but you have 7 paragraphs to choose from. So one paragraph you do not need to use. Time for my first tip. I suggest that you very quickly, 1 minute maximum, skim the passage, so read the passage very quickly, just to get an overall idea of the topic. And my second tip is to read all 7 paragraphs, A to G, which you will find below the text. And then, next to each paragraph, I suggest writing 1 or 2 words which summarize the topic of the paragraph or the main point in the paragraph. And you should only spend 1 or 2 minutes doing this. So firstly, read the whole passage to have an understanding, and secondly, read the paragraphs and write 1 or 2 words next to each paragraph so you know what that paragraph is about. So let's practice this. What I'd like you guys to do is to open the Cambridge English Advanced 2015 sample paper 4, which you can do if you type in this web address here into your internet browser. And that will open up a document which looks like this. And then what we need to do is to scroll down to page 12, I think it is, part 7, 5, part 6, yeah, page 12, part 7. And the passage looks like this, with the 6 gaps in. Below there are the 7 paragraphs on page 13. So, what I'd like you to do is to have a look at the 7 paragraphs. It might be easier for you to have a look here on page 13 and to read these and to write down between 2 and 4 words that summarize each of these paragraphs here. And I'd like you to time yourself and to try to do this in only 2 minutes. So when you're ready, press pause, take 2 minutes, write down 2 to 4 words for each paragraph, and then when you're ready, press play. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. So let's have a look at the words which I wrote down for each paragraph. Now remember, these are subjective, so there is no right and wrong answer to this. If you have different words to me, that's okay. These are just the words that I wrote down which will help me in the exam. So for A, I wrote down tourists and trips. For B, I wrote a money sign because I think it's about money. For C, I wrote down moving, breathing, feeding. And D, protected, habitat, travel. E, money again, local economy, value. F, scuba, snorkeling, sport. And G, long life, local economy and benefits. So these words here are really going to help me to understand what these paragraphs are about without me needing to really properly read through the paragraphs again. Okay. Time for my next tip. Tip number 3. You should read at least the few sentences before the gap and after the gap. And if you have time, you should read the whole passage in detail, but be aware that this might take a long time. So before you get in the exam, when you are practicing this with your course book or with another sample paper, you should time yourself to see how long it takes you to complete this exercise in this way, using my tips, and you should also time yourself to see how long it takes you to read through the passage. And then see if it takes too long, then obviously in the exam you won't be able to do that, in which case you should just read the few sentences before the gap and after the gap. But you need to read a few sentences, because sometimes the sentence before or the sentence after the gap might not have the information you need. So you need to read at least the few sentences before the gap and a few sentences after the gap. Okay. Time for tip number 4. Next to each gap, you should write your possible answer. You might think that 2 paragraphs are possible next to one gap, and your decision should become easier if you write the letters next to every gap. So write the letters that you think are possible next to every gap. And then let's say, for example, that you write A and E next to question 41, and you have just written the letter A next to gap 45. Then we know that E will probably be the answer for question 41, and A will probably be the answer for question 45. Unless maybe you've also written E and A next to other questions as well. But if you haven't, this is a good theory to follow. E will probably be the answer for question 41, and A will probably be the answer for question 45. Okay, so for homework, what I'd like you to do is to follow the tips and technique from this lesson in order, because I take you through in the process of what you should do first, what you should do second, what you should do third. So follow the order to complete the part 4 exercises from this sample paper here, which we opened earlier, on pages 12 and 13. But you should also use these tips and techniques to complete some similar part 7, sorry, not part 4, but part 7 exercises from a course book. And this is a really good course book that I recommend. If you type this web address into your internet browser, you'll find this course book here. And yeah, this has some really good exercises. So you should take the tips and technique from this lesson, put them into use them with the course book in the same order every time you complete part 7 exercise in the course book. When you want to find out the answers for your questions for the sample paper part 4, if you look at the document where the questions are and you scroll to the bottom, you should also find the answer key here. So this tells you whether you have the right answers or the wrong answers. Okay, and if you would like to book live lessons with me to practice this part of the exam, or to practice another part of the exam, or to practice English in general, you can send me an email at admin@studentlanguages.com, and then we can talk about booking some lessons. Alright, I hope you find this lesson useful, and in the next lesson we will be focusing on part 8 of the reading paper.